person? All right. At 6:00, all right, which one do I believe? 6:04, I call the meeting to order, the May 8th, 2025 meeting of the Berthoud Planning Commission. It's our practice to say the Pledge of Allegiance prior to conducting Planning Commission business, so please stand while we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. To begin our business, Tom, would you please take the roll for the Planning Commission?
Chair Anderson.
Present.
Vice Chair Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Hoffmans. Commissioner Brody.
Here.
Commissioner Pond. Commissioner Semendales.
Sure.
Commissioner Sigmund.
Here.
Thank you. So we have two. It's like we have two sets of minutes to approve tonight. The first one is the Housing Steering Committee minutes from April 10th. So are there any changes, commissioners, that you would have to those minutes? No? Okay, with that, then I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
A motion to approve those minutes?
Commissioner Semendales moves to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Smith seconds. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Nays and abstentions. Okay, great. Our second set of minutes is the Planning Commission minutes from April 10th. Are there any changes, commissioners? Questions? Okay, so with that, then I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll move to approve the Planning Commission minutes from April 10th.
Commissioner Smith moves to approve those minutes. Is there a second?
I second.
Commissioner Semendales seconds the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays and abstentions. Okay, great. Got through quite a bit of the agenda already. Okay. So the next item on our agenda, which is number 5 on your agenda. Well, before we do that, I'm going to ask all of you, since Erin couldn't attend tonight, and she was Erin Smith, who's our city attorney. So let me ask if we have leave to amend the agenda by consent to remove that item from the agenda.
Yes.
Everyone agree? No
Yes.
consent? Okay, so there is a consent to amend the agenda. Agenda so amended. That would be, what's that, item 7? So we're striking item 7 on the agenda. Okay, with that, brings us to what is item 5. Johnson, would you like to introduce the Berthoud Mead intergovernmental agreement as proposed?
Yes, so many communities in Colorado enter into intergovernmental agreements, and I know it's not there, but I was hoping it would just like appear magically. Oh, there it is. All right. Enter intergovernmental agreements. Sometimes they're called cooperative planning agreements. And when communities are quickly growing, it's often a very good idea because what you're doing is you're establishing, so to speak, your line in the sand. You're saying, I'm not going to grow past this line. You're not going to grow past this line. And we might have some common themes. Some municipalities will do common design guidelines for, a mile beyond their boundaries. We're not proposing that. It's honestly very simple. We're saying, here's our urban growth boundary from our land use code. Mead is saying, here's our urban growth boundary from their comprehensive plan and land use code. And then this shows them together. So, our boundary is in red, their boundary is all the other. And so we are agreeing that there are 2 common areas. One is Weld County Road 7, that's 1 mile west of I-25. And then I believe it is Road 40 that we share some common maintenance. and that we're going to agree to work together with CDOT, to work with any granting agencies in order to jointly improve those roads. What this agreement is also doing is that if we annex property that's adjacent to the intergovernmental agreement, rather than allowing the developer just to annex half the road right-of-way, they need to annex the full road right-of-way. And then to providing notice to each other, today I just received a notice that they're working on their trails and open space master plan, and they'd like Berthoud to participate, because again, we want to make sure that we're linking our community assets together. So again, it just provides that written notice that, hey, we're working together. It also eliminates, back in the late 1990s and early 2000s, a lot of development was happening very quickly for annexation, and oftentimes the developers would pit communities against each other, saying, well, if I go to this community, they're gonna do this for me, and then now I'm gonna come to you. It's like, shopping and trying to get the best deal. That eliminates that. If we get a referral underneath that red line, we are going to tell that developer, you need to go and talk to Mead. They're gonna do the same thing for us. So again, it's a cooperative planning agreement. So again, annexing the entire right-of-way width so that that section then is in one jurisdiction, providing each other notice, no storage facilities within a 1/4 mile of that boundary line.
I was curious on that one. I don't have a problem with it, but where did that one come from?
That was a request by the town of Mead, that we just don't allow outdoor storage facilities or anything like that. Probably from an aesthetic standpoint, coming in, and right now, none of the property in Berthoud's jurisdiction is even zoned to allow it. Yeah.
Yeah, again, no problem, just odd.
Yeah.
Very specific.
Problem.
Yeah, I was like, I wonder how we got to
Yeah,
just that one.
Yeah, so I just said, all right, fine, then it doesn't matter to us, and there you go. Commitment to improve Weld County Roads 40 and Weld County Road 7. And that is absolutely it when it comes to the Mead IGA. This will be going to the town board of trustees. And that is absolutely all I have to say. Do you have any questions?
What does that mean by continue to improve the county roads 40 and 7?
Right, so we've made a commitment because those are joint, 7 is almost like a frontage road for I-25, and part of that is in our jurisdiction, part of that is in Mead's jurisdiction. We did apply for a grant from the North Front Range Metropolitan Planning Organization. We didn't get that grant, but it's just a commitment to continue to pursue the grant funding to improve that road from Highway 56 all the way south into their jurisdiction, because the anticipated heavier traffic over the years is going to impact both of us.
So basically widening and stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah, paving it.
And if I-25 is closed, everybody gets moved over onto that road, and it is a nightmare to go through there.
Exactly, and then it's tracking, because right now it's not paved, and then tracking onto other streets. It's a safety concern. And then 40 happens to be a very small 2-mile stretch that's in both of our jurisdictions, so we're just saying we're gonna work on that together as well.
Okay. And then, so like if a developer came in, if you go back to that slide, bless you, where you had those bullet points, no, I'm sorry, where you had the bullet point. Annex the entire road. So would it just be kind of spotty?
Yeah, I was gonna have that same question. Is there areas where you could go in and out of, this is ours, and then it's theirs, and then it's ours
Both sides
again?
are ours, but that side is yours.
Yeah, we'd work with them on that. The good thing about that is right now, the majority of those properties are in quarter sections, so they're already half miles, in segments. And so most likely along our shared boundaries, the annexations are going to be happening in very large parcels of land. They're not just in little 5-mile chunks, they're in 160 to 640 acre parcels.
Yeah, it
Oh,
looks
okay.
like we did, those courthouse. almost
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it just seemed odd, like, we would be responsible for both sides of the road here, but, you know, I mean, I'm just thinking like snowing and maintenance and stuff like that.
Well, and a lot of what is out there now isn't contiguous, so it's not touching the town. So what would have to happen is we'd have to annex a road and its entire right-of-way to create that pole of a flagpole annexation. So it's not then just annexing half of it, it's annexing the whole thing so that you don't get the half side in Mead and the north side in
Right.
Berthoud. So if we have to use that right-of-way for an annexation contiguity requirement, we're gonna annex the whole thing and then we'd control miles.
Okay.
You know, and not control, but we'd maintain miles.
Do we have a similar agreement with any other communities?
We do with Larimer County, we're in the process of updating that. I've requested one with Johnstown, and we'd like one with Weld County as well.
There's something I was curious about when I looked at the map. There's a little kind of bump in section into what I would consider.
That buff color,
Yeah, what is that?
that was, I believe, an argument from the past. And we agreed that that would go to Mead.
Why? And then
I don't have that history.
Hopefully
And-
you traded these two chunks over here on the left for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but it was, and this just reflects our urban growth boundary map that was associated with our comprehensive plan. So I was not curious and did not ask why that was, because it reflected exactly what they have on their urban growth boundary map is going up. So I am just making an assumption it was an agreement from the past, and because our map matched their map, they just go together.
It just seemed odd to me because everything on the either side or north of it is Berthoud.
Yep, I will try to find out the history on that, just to,
And not all that property is incorporated either, correct?
correct.
So how does that work? Like, we don't have rights to anything, but that's just property that we're eligible to incorporate?
Yeah, what this does is through that comprehensive planning process, it establishes when Berthoud grows, this is where we want to grow, this is where we can serve with water, with sewer, with roads, and then we establish that boundary map. Then we give that map to Larimer County and to Weld County, and they should be sending us referrals for development within unincorporated parts. And if a property owner wants to develop at an urban level scale, they should be annexing into Berthoud. And then they'd be following our standards.
So what happens if, just as an example, in an unincorporated area that really is between the two, it's like no man's land, right? Some guy comes in, buys up all this property, and it's in no man's land, and it's right in between there, it's not annexed. Would we annex like an island?
We could,
Okay.
yeah, if somebody came in our urban growth boundary area, you know, and they said, well, I wanna go to Mead and not Berthoud, Mead, because of this agreement, would say, no, you have to go to Berthoud. And if that area was in Larimer County, our intergovernmental agreement with Larimer, our current intergovernmental agreement with Larimer County is strong enough that Larimer County would say, you're wanting to develop at an urban scale, you really need to speak with Berthoud. Weld County, their intergovernmental agreement are not as strong. And they will say, go and talk to Berthoud, and if they wanna annex you and you don't like it, then you can still come back to the county.
Under Colorado statutes, do they have to be contiguous in order to, or, because you
Well-
mentioned island, like in Illinois, you couldn't do that. They have to have some they have to be
You
contiguous.
have to have 1/6 contiguity in Colorado, however, that contiguity can be achieved by a flagpole annexation.
Okay.
So then you can annex up to 3 miles of pole every year to get to a flag.
Thank you.
That's interesting.
Well, I think these are a great idea and they help solve a lot of problems
Yeah.
down the road.
Yeah,
And as you say, I think they're better for developers. They understand they're coming to the right town. They're not playing games. And I think you've done a great job.
that's just smart growth.
Well, and probably makes more sense now as we begin to we continue to grow, and as Mead is really growing, probably makes even more sense now than it did before. Start defining some of these things.
Yep, and we want to be good neighbors, and Mead has been a good neighbor, and we want to reciprocate that.
And can you remind us what the comprehensive plan process is like for developing like compatible zoning along these boundaries? Is like that something that the town does when working with Mead to make sure that, you know, the zoning isn't really incongruent?
So the IGA that we're looking at now doesn't address that at all. Now, we will be a referral for anything that's happening in Mead's area near us. Mead will be a referral for anything that's happening in their area to us. For example, they have some oil and gas activity that they're going to be doing right at our boundary. They gave me a referral. I provided them with information. I asked them, well, if you have any haul routes within our boundary, you're gonna need to enter into a long-term road maintenance agreement to make sure they're not tearing up our roads. If you're going to be doing any seismic operations, we, in Berthoud, because of your project in Mead, we have seismic operation permit requirements. If you're, doing X, Y, and Z. So we give them a referral and just let them know, here's the scoop, if you are doing these things, and then please tell us, what you are or are not doing. And they just responded on Monday saying that we're not doing seismic operations, here's our haul route, we're not impacting Berthoud at all. So it's just a greater opportunity to work together. And then as far as you can see on this map, the majority of the property is already kind of lined up. And that's a nice thing about planning. You can see we have yellow property, they have yellow property. We have green property, they do too, and the buff. So things right now are pretty similar in our long-range planning. Now, that doesn't mean that something couldn't happen. Like as they move towards I-25, they do have a lot more intensive land use than we do. We have that Turion Wilson project on the east side of I-25. Part of that is in Mead and part of that is in Berthoud. So when they develop things like that, then of course we want to make sure that we're developing the same way.
Yeah.
But it's an excellent question. And we will just, the desires just simply work together and cooperate.
Are you ready for a motion?
Not yet, we have to have a public hearing.
Oh, that's right.
But close, we're close. Okay, all right, so at this time then, if we don't have any other questions of Ann, then I'm gonna open the public hearing. Anyone who's interested in speaking about the proposed intergovernmental agreement, please step to the lectern and sign the sheet in front of you, state your name and address. Mr. Larson, no? Okay, all right. Since no one is interested in speaking about this topic, I will close the public hearing. Okay. Discussion, commissioners. This is our time to discuss this particular matter. Okay, I don't have any more discussion, then I would entertain a motion.
I would move to recommend approval of the Berthoud Mead IGA to the Town Board of Trustees. The formation of the IGA is a goal listed in the latest comprehensive plan, and having agreed upon boundaries will minimize potential conflicts, create a cooperative planning process with our neighbors, and establish cooperation in the future land use activities.
We have a motion. We have a motion. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
We have a second to the motion. Could we take the roll, please, Tom?
Commissioner Hoffmans? Present. Vice Chair Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Brody?
Yes.
Commissioner Pond? Not present. Commissioner Sigmund?
Yes.
Commissioner Simidalis?
Yes.
Chair Anderson?
Yes. Unanimous vote of those present, motion passes. And I apologize, I should have said Commissioner Sigmund made the motion and that we had a second, and Commissioner Simidalis seconded. I always repeat those votes because I don't know, like on the recording, if someone is transcribing it, they'll know instead of just hearing the voice. I've transcribed them before and it's a pain. It doesn't say that, doesn't reiterate that. So, okay. All right, so that takes us to number 6 on our agenda, and that's the 2025 Land Use Code Amendment. And you're up again. Ann.
All right, Chair Anderson, Tawn's gonna get her turn in June and July. So, the town of Berthoud has we have an award-winning comprehensive plan. It was adopted in 2021, and ever since that time, we've been implementing the vision of that comprehensive plan into the land use code. We've done that, and we have great components of our land use code. We offer a lot of flexibility for developers. Well, now it's time to get in and make sure all the references to revised statutes, all of the references, everything is updated and scrubbed. So we're starting to open it up into sections, and we're going to be rearranging our land use code and clarifying. We're going to try to create more tables so it's easy to understand, very straightforward. So the first one that we looked at is the flood mitigation code. And that was adopted just a couple years ago. And the Colorado Water Conservation Board is the state's arm of FEMA in administering the flood mitigation program. And then town development review engineer Luke Sieber, then he is our floodplain administrator. So Larimer County updated maps, titles, and dates. I ran this by Luke, and I also ran this by Colorado Water Conservation Board, and they just gave us a tiny little change on one page. So that's the only thing for this chapter. So woohoo! And what we're going to be doing is, as we are done with sections, we're going to bring them to you, rather than having you see 500 pages of land development code in one setting. Now, that doesn't mean things aren't going to change from now until hopefully September, October, when you see this. But we just wanted you to be aware of the concept and why we're doing some things. So these all are pretty easy. So flood mitigation, piece of cake. Then annexation. The town of Berthoud, and I can't tell you all the details on this, the town of Berthoud passed an ordinance that indicated that for certain portions of unincorporated Larimer County that are west of County Road 19, that there has to be an election in order to even consider annexation. So that's an ordinance, people know about it, it's not in code. I'd like it written into code so that people understand we have this ordinance, it's for this area. If you want to annex, see that ordinance. And I'm just, Aaron Smith will help me write that language. So that's one thing I want to change in the annexation chapter. Also, a reference to the water dedication requirements, because the town board adopted water dedication requirements 2 years ago, 18 months ago, and it's not referenced in the annexation section. And what that ordinance says is that at the time of annexation, the developer is responsible to dedicate the historic water that was tied to that property to the town. Now, that water then can be used for single-family equivalencies or non-potable water. It can be used for a lot of different purposes on that property, but the timing of that dedication is at annexation. So we just want, again, we want to be transparent. We want people to know about that obligation. And then we want to clarify the requirements for annexation application materials. We have a template annexation petition, and we've had some developers recently just give us that petition without completing it, without explaining why they are in compliance with Colorado revised statute. They're just saying, well, I've got this template, I'm just signing it. And staff is sending it back indicating, well, you need to explain how you're meeting the requirements. And we're getting a lot of pushback because they don't understand that a template means you customize it. So we're just wanting to clarify what the requirements are for annexations. So that's where we are right now on that. Any questions there?
Yeah, so you mentioned that West County Road 19 it's a voting to annex it. Who again's doing that voting? Who
The
has?
citizens of Berthoud, it would have to be a ballot measure on an election. Yes, and so it's really complicated and it requires a lot of time and thought and a financial commitment in order to consider that annexation. And that's why just the average individual developer coming in isn't going to have that history. And I just want it memorialized in the land use code.
And is that a special election? or-
It is. It could be a special election or it could be on a general election.
Okay. And then the water rights. So are you saying that the properties west of here, they all have some type of water right?
They could. So,
Not necessarily.
yeah, not necessarily. So what's happened is some developers will have water and land can be severed.
Mhm.
Just like, you know, land is a bundle of sticks and water's one and coal's one and whatever's one. They can all be severed from the surface estate. So what we're saying is if you have water that's tied to that property and you decide you're going to sell that water, it needs to stay with the property because we believe land and water need to stay together. So if somebody sells, you know, 5 shares of CBT, and then we know that they've just sold it after they've applied for annexation because they don't want to dedicate that to the town, they're trying to make money. Our water attorney will find out what historic water has been tied to property, and it's required that then, sorry, you just sold that, you have to now go and rebuy it, or rebuy something that is equivalent in quality and quantity. Yeah, because we need that water in order to fuel our system to give people water out of their faucets or on our landscaping.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, any more questions on annexation? All right, now going to the big one. This was our first biggie, and the general provisions section, we're pulling in a lot of random, I'm calling them orphan sections that were in other parts of the code. We're pulling them all in here, like vesting. That is your right to develop on that property after you've received approval. And when does vesting expire? Non-conformities, we're pulling that in because that was in the subdivision chapter, I believe, and it doesn't belong in the subdivision chapter. These belong in a general provisions chapter of the code. We're also clarifying what the purpose of the land use code is. We're including a process for amendments to the comprehensive plan. Right now, the comprehensive plan says it can be amended, but there's not a process. So what we're suggesting is that they follow the change of zone process if you want to amend the comprehensive plan. Because even though the comp plan is not a legislative document, it's a guiding document on how to use land, and that's kind of the same thing as zoning. And so it's a very simple process. It doesn't result in legal authority, but it leads to legality.
And the planning commission will be involved in that.
Yep, planning commission and the town trustees then, because right now we don't have a process, so we're gonna have one. We added, we deleted, and we moved around definitions. What you'll see is anything that's a sign, it will no longer say banner, comma, sign with Bs. Everything will be sign, comma, banner, so all the signs are together. All of the congregate housing is together. All of certain types of like things are going to be together. And then we went through a painstaking process and made sure that any use listed on the land use table actually had a definition, and anything that was defined was actually on the land use table. So we did that cross-referencing, and then we found things that could have been assumed, let's say, some type of use could have been assumed to be under the umbrella of general business, but it was just a little bit different enough that we went ahead and created that definition for that type of use. So we're further refining. We're not doing a lot of taking away. but we're just refining. And then there's a table that we put together. It's a public hearing and general notice provisions table. And we went ahead and we added the referral process to that table because that is a notice that we would do. And that is it for that one. The next chapters we're working on right now is,
Subdivisions.
yeah, we're combining subdivision and land use in one chapter. If you want to do something on your property, here's where you go. We are creating a nice list of intent statements. If you want to develop in Berthoud, you have to meet these, certain criteria. And that will be unified criteria for approval for all subdivisions and all land use applications in Berthoud. So there will be a uniform set of criteria. We're going to create tables for application requirements. And instead of defining what those application requirements are then on the table, we're going to then have a section that says, this is what an application form is. This is what the memorandum of understanding and the fees are. It's similar to what we did with the application process table, is here's what you do and here's what all of this means. Because what we want to do is we want to simplify everything and not have a 70-page document. We'd like to have a 35-page document that helps people identify how they develop in Berthoud. And then common map requirements. And if you're creating a map, what needs to be on there? Because some places, you've got a north arrow here, but you don't have a north arrow there. Some common application process, common notification process, just making it much more easy and to understand. And I think there's another chapter we're working on as well, a section. So we're gonna bring these in bundles. But that's what I've got for you tonight.
Discussion, commissioners?
I guess I just want to comment. First of all, I know how hard this is. This is a nightmare. It needs to be done. It's just all those little things. And so I appreciate the work that staff is putting in, because I know this looks nice and simple, but to get to this is really hard. I also want to thank you for sending it in pieces, because it's just, you guys have to go through all of it, but for us to be able to take it in bite-sized pieces really makes a big difference. And I think helps that we'll understand everything as it comes through.
Yeah.
So.
And things will change, but again, the intent is to be fully transparent with you, and so that when you get it, it's not a big shock.
And you expect to have all of this completed by September?
Yeah, we have to, because our town clerk was able to negotiate a good price for codification into MuniCode, the online system, due to some past challenges in getting MuniCode to get things correct. So Christian was able to negotiate a really good price for us. So in order to get it done in 2025, we have to get it to you all in September or October, because we'll have to have 2 readings before the town board of trustees.
Something longer term to look at if you haven't already. MuniCode does offer a self-publication module, and we went to it and we were having mass amounts of problems with our other codifier, and then doing it yourself. I mean, the board will vote on it in our case, it was a Tuesday. By Wednesday morning, once the president and the clerk sign off on it, it's live on your site. So you really, I know that may not be for this, but longer term, it's definitely something that would be good to look at.
No, we looked into that, but it's not ADA compliant. And so now everything has to be ADA compliant, and it wasn't. So that's what our clerk found out. So, but we definitely looked at that and we were really happy and excited.
I'm trying to figure out why, if their regular module is ADA compliant, why they're self-public. It makes no sense. It's the same, but I won't argue. I don't know. That's bizarre, because there's hundreds of towns that I know that use it, and everybody has to follow the same ADA standards, so kind of odd, but.
All right, so that's it.
Questions or comments? We don't have to take any action, we can just talk about it if we'd like. No, I too think this is a lot of work, and I appreciate that you're doing it so that it will be helpful for people, developers, obviously, who want to see something more streamlined and everything, that it's the same subject matter in the same place. I think that's wonderful. But the fact that you're willing to tackle it, the two of you, I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Yep, it's definitely a team approach, and it's been, we're getting there, and it's gonna be great. And we can't wait for this year to be done.
Thank you for that. Much appreciated. And we're gonna get to digest this in smaller bites. That's wonderful.
And I will follow up with our town clerk to ensure that that is the rationale, and I'll let you know. So I've got some follow-up points here for you.
I find it interesting though about having to have an election to do an annexation west of
Yeah.
County Road 19.
Do you know when that last happened?
I think it was about 10 years ago, and it might have happened, I don't think it was because of Heron Lakes. I think it may have been because of the Jaskowski property that was given to the town, and we annexed that, and that's pretty far west. Again, I don't have the history, and that's why I've asked our attorney to provide that history, get it into the code so everyone knows, including staff.
Yeah.
It makes me, I want to talk to ask Aaron, how can that be constitutional? Because why wouldn't every area be able to have that same privilege of having to have a vote first?
Yeah, why isn't that like that in Old County?
I think there's a due process issue there, but I want to ask Aaron that question.
It's interesting.
Well, actually, I had the question, I saw the discussion with Aaron. What was the purpose of the discussion?
Just to have conversation and questioning about, well, why don't we finish with this agenda item, and then we can talk about that.
I had some ideas for it. But yeah, I would love to ask her that question about how that is possibly constitutional. But anyway,
Yeah, it seems odd, yeah.
yeah. And how that would mesh even with Colorado's constitution, but, a little federal one, but anyway. All right, so any other discussion about?
I don't think so. I think cleaning it up and the organization you can see is starting to come together. I mean, there's some redundancies. There's, a lot of references all over the place. I mean, it's just, it's like someone just took it and just started adding on to code, and it's very choppy, so.
Well, and I think it helps move the developers through the process versus, oh, you just sent us this thing with your signature on, like it clearly gives them more guidance on how to eliminate the back and forth, which I think probably a lot of them are what we're hearing complaints about is how long it takes. Well, fill paperwork out correctly and you wouldn't have a delay, but yeah, it just makes sense to clean that stuff up.
Yeah, because our code is incredibly flexible and it offers developers a lot of room for creativity. So we want good quality materials coming in, and so this will be much more clear on here are our expectations. And if you want to develop in Berthoud, you just have to do these things. And it's not onerous what we're asking them to do, answer these questions. That's not a difficult thing.
Well, it could be, depending on how they answer the questions.
It could be, you're right, you're right.
How it goes along with the theme of the process
Yeah, well,
that we've talked about.
Mhm.
Anything else? If not, then we can move along and I think talk about if you'd like, as kind of a, not why we had Aaron on the agenda. Aaron, I mean, I think from time to time, there are just questions that we all have as we go through different land use issues. And we do have some land use issues coming up here in the next few months, so that if there were things that you wanted to kind of ask her about, if you were curious about certain motions, or what our parameters are with putting conditions on certain things, or, you know, I think that's really helpful. I think sometimes it's good to be reminded that we're quasi judicial and there are certain ex parte communication guardrails that we needed to be mindful of, and I think she's really good at helping us define what those are. And so I think there's issues like that that make it helpful to have her from time to come and talk to us. And I think this would have been a good meeting to do it at, just because I know we have these other land use things coming up here pretty soon. Things like neighborhood master plans and preliminary plats that I think are the meat of some of the things that we do. And I think sometimes I think sometimes we have questions about what are actually our parameters and our guardrails with regard to some of them. You know, what are the things that we actually are allowed to do and we're not allowed to do? You know, and I think there are times when we've been in some of those hearings and thought, well, can we actually do it this way? Or is that something that would take us beyond what our limits, you know, what our restrictions or our limits are, you know? And that's where I think it's helpful sometimes there for just coming in and kind of give us a tune-up.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know it, like, I've been unfortunately gone for a couple months, so I
Yes.
didn't know if there was something specific that
No.
occurred that we asked her to be here to address.
No, good question.
Yeah, and it really is, this planning commission is the best planning commission I've had the opportunity to work with. And so it is because you've taken those opportunities to work with Tammy Toy with CIRSA, which is a Colorado insurance carrier for municipalities. And you've worked with Aaron Smith, the town attorney, to understand making motions, staying within the criteria. How do you conduct a meeting? And so you all are incredibly professional and, you know, following Robert's rules. And so it's just an opportunity then to talk to her and even talk about, we had a past case and this is a scenario that happened. This is what we did. What are there any tips that we could have done differently? So I think it's just a good opportunity for you all to have access to the town attorney and then have that conversation. Yeah, so nothing in particular. It was just an opportunity for you all.
Yeah, I'd love to chat with her because I feel like, you know, once, especially developers find out you're on the planning commission, they run into you in public and want to bend your ear about all this stuff. And I'm just like, you know, this is how the process works. The town presents the information to us and we based our decision on this criteria. If you have those questions, you need to ask the town, not me. I'm not the one who can answer those questions for you, but I just want to make sure I'm not putting my foot in my mouth somewhere in a conversation with somebody, and
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard because I've
Yeah.
had the same thing happen to
it's a small town, so.
and usually I have to say, well, you have to follow what you're told by the staff, and you have to, you know, put your best foot forward in the hearing. That's about all you can say,
Yep.
you know, because I had one ask me about process, and I said exactly that. Follow what the staff tells you and put your best foot forward in the hearing. You know, everything else is governed by, you know, certain procedures. You know, and as you know, there's criteria. You've been told by the staff what the criteria is. That's about all you can say.
And that's really smart to just talk about the process. And if you ever get anybody that wants to keep pushing you on the merits or, you know, bad things about a certain project, one thing you can always remind them of is, if you continue to talk to me about this, I'm now not going to be unbiased. And if I have been persuaded by what you're saying, I then, I could agree with you during the hearing, I can no longer vote.
So I think it would be, and hopefully she can come to a future meeting and talk to us about some of these things.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
If we ever have a question, like, so you were mentioning we have a couple things coming up, and if there's something there, I assume though, if we had a very specific question about something that's gonna be on our agenda, we would get that to you and Aaron could give us feedback if we have a.
Yeah, if there's a legal question, definitely we can, you know, give me as much warning as possible, and I can call the attorneys if it's a legal question. If it's something that Ton or I can answer, you can call us anytime about anything on the agenda. And it might just be a clarification, like, well, why are we doing these together? Or remind me the process for this. We won't talk about the merits of an application, but we'll tell you about the process.
Yeah, I mean, I know you just said, sometimes we have guardrails, can we do this? And I'm like, it would be nice, since she's not gonna be here at those hearings with us, to,
Yeah.
when in doubt, just get it to her head, right?
No, I think that's the right thing to do. I think you're absolutely hit the nail on the head, is ask staff, ask Aaron if we need that, you know, so I think it's helpful to do that and feel comfortable doing that. And those are resources for us.
Yep, and if there's going to be a controversial hearing that we know about, number one, we're going to make sure that we have law enforcement present. And number two, we're going to make sure that Aaron or Alicia are at least available on Zoom.
Oh, okay, that's
So-
great, thank
so
you, I
yeah,
was,
So we do that proactively if we think something even might be controversial.
that's very helpful to know, okay, good.
And it has been several times very helpful having them on Zoom with us. All right. Does that bring us into staff reports? Ready for that?
Okay, so the next planning commission will be on May 22nd. And looking at the master, there will be two bundles of land use hearings that night. There will be an annexation, a change of zone, and a neighborhood master plan for one property. And then there will also be a preliminary plat for another property. So there will be two agenda items, two very different projects, but you'll hear one presentation that covers everything. And then you'll vote separately on that one that's a bundle of three. So is anybody gonna be missing on May 22nd?
I will.
You will, okay.
Ooh, I'm in
There you go.
charge.
Yeah.
Watch out.
Boy.
That's ought to be an interesting one, right? Well, Justin will be here.
Yeah.
I always do that from a legal, that's why I always send him reviews, so I don't miss it from a legal
Yeah, that'd be
standpoint.
helpful.
And so I'll send you a couple of those and you can
Perfect.
kind of play around with them.
Okay, thank you.
And then on June, let's see, then June 12th, you will have another, just presentation on code update. And then there will be another bundle of annexation for annexation, change of zone, and neighborhood master plan. So June 12th, anybody gonna be out on that one? You'll be out, okay.
I don't have any plans now, but I'm part of an acquisition team and it's gonna get messy, so I might have to, but I'll hopefully be able to work around it.
Okay. And do you know anything about David's schedule?
I'm assuming he'll be back.
Okay,
He seems to be recovering pretty well.
okay. So what I'll do is, because if that's the case, then we only have two that would be here for that night. So I'll send out a poll requesting, which would mean we wouldn't have quorum. So then they'd get pushed to the next one, which then, that next one, you will also have a neighborhood master plan, a change of zone, and more code updates. So that could be a long meeting on the 26th.
26th of June.
Yeah. So is everybody gonna be here on the 26th of June? You will not
Yes.
be here, okay. But everybody else will?
Let me ask you a question. You're probably gonna wanna bite my head off when I ask this question. When we have meetings where it looks like we're gonna have, it's gonna be long like that, is it possible to shift something? Like, it's just something that doesn't have to be noticed, like the code amendments. Could that be shifted to like the Tuesday of that week when we have another meeting? I know it's another night for you guys, but
Right, well, we have historic preservation. It depends on what other committees are meeting, because Tuesdays are usually town trustees nights as well. And so like the code stuff could move. The reason why though we have these schedules is because then we know that we're gonna be open and the intent is that we have quorum. And so, and when we we pre-advertise everything, so it changes publication. And so if we don't have quorum on the 12th, then that's going to have to shift to the 26th. So on the 26th, we would have the annexation changes on neighborhood master plan, and then another one would be a neighborhood master plan and a change of zone. And so then that code update, then we just combine it, and it could be a relatively quick discussion on the code, but then those land use hearings have to happen because what's going on is the town trustees only want to see one land use hearing every agenda. So then if we don't have quorum on the 12th, then that impacts the town trustees hearing. And then it pushes everything back out. We're now looking at the end of August for some of our land use hearings because they only want one thing, and you're June.
And again, I'm sorry, a bad one. Do we ever look at just a different Thursday, like the 1st or the 3rd to fill in or something, or no? Just if you can't do the 12th?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would have to talk to our town clerk about rearranging meetings and seeing, you know, if they allow that.
So the town board only wants, when you say one thing, is it one subject matter or like one, I'm trying to get my own.
It could be like it could be an annexation agreement, changes on a neighborhood master plan for one application.
So one
They
app,
consider that one thing,
they want just one app.
right?
Okay.
One property, one project on every agenda. So if we don't have quorum, that then knocks something off the town trustees, and then that knocks everybody else down the line even
On the line,
further.
like almost a month.
And I know everybody's different. It's just the 12th is the only Thursday in that June I can't make. So I was like, I can go before, after, I can go
That's okay, well,
Tuesday that week.
I will send out a poll, just asking everybody to confirm when they're out. So we also then, so right now, July 10th would be, so we'd have something on May 22nd, June 12th, June 26th, July 10th, we don't have anything. And then
The
it would
code
be,
amendments go to July 12th, July 10th, you said?
oh yeah, definitely, we could do that. If nothing else pops up, however, Tom's processing a lot of applicants that they could be ready for the July 10th. We just, right now, we don't have anything that's ready. But there are several that are in the works that could be ready.
Most likely.
So definitely, we'll land use cases take priority because we want the development community to get going. And we can shift staff things around. We also then don't want you to have one night where you're looking at really big sections of the code. The design section will be huge for changes, and the land use and the subdivision section are going to be large with changes as well. So we want to be fair to you all and then still keep our September, October deadline.
So you're telling us we're gonna have a pretty busy.
Busy summer.
Summer
Yes,
for
yes.
land use issues.
Busy summer, yep, and then we've got, yes, you will have a busy summer. And then another annexation, if the town trustees vote, let's see, where are we? If the town trustees vote on this particular one, the end of May, if they find there to be a community of interest on this one, then you'll hear that one at Planning Commission for Annexation, Zoning, and Neighborhood Master Plan at the end of July.
East of Highway or County Road 19, I assume.
East of 19, yes.
So on the 22nd, you said there's one, there's two applications. One is an annexation and a neighborhood master plan.
Yeah, on the 22nd, we have an annexation, change of zone, neighborhood master plan for one particular project. And then there's also a preliminary plat,
And that's a different app or is it the same app?
a different application. So there will be two land use items for you, two different projects. One project just has 3 steps. And so you'll hear one presentation, but you'll have 3 things to vote on. And then one will just be one item to vote on, a different project. And so I will
Not a
pull,
process.
You can't even have a.
but it looks like we'll have quorum that night. Where we won't have quorum potentially is on the 12th. So I will ask Commissioner Hoffman's, Commissioner Pond, and then Commissioner Brody. You don't know if you're gonna be here or not.
Right now, I'm open, but, and
Okay.
I can also, when I travel, I'm usually there for 4 full days. I can also move my trip to leave Sunday evening,
Okay.
and I have full Monday instead of spending Monday traveling and get home Thursday morning. So we'll
Okay,
work
we'll
it out.
figure it out. That sounds good. So anyway, just, think about second and fourth Thursdays. If you have to travel, or if you're choosing to travel, maybe think about that. All right. Okay, so board outcomes for you. So the Housing Diversity Plan was approved on April 22nd. Gratitude was given by the board to the steering committee members. And we are starting to work on the action plan items. And, oh, yes, so we got a new calculator, provided by DOLA to determine what our thresholds were. And I am pleased to present, but very shocked, that our minimum price went from $427 to $501.
Wow.
So because of that, we only had 4 in 18 months that were sold for less than $427,000. We now have 65. That's sold.
In that, in
That's one
between
way to
that.
tackle the number, just raise the
Yeah.
threshold.
Raise the threshold.
That says a lot in itself, doesn't
We're
it?
gonna meet this number.
So you met the requirement by 5, 6 almost? Yeah.
Yes, so now we were supposed to have, our obligation was 39 in 3 years, and we've almost doubled that in 18
Yeah,
months.
that's amazing.
And that doesn't include rental property, that doesn't include going in and looking at properties that have been rehabilitated and flipped, or we even have a situation where there was an outbuilding that had some methamphetamine contamination. And so by eliminating that contaminated structure, it allowed somebody to remain in their house. So if that particular home was valued under that threshold, by eliminating that problem, that house would have even been able to count. So we don't have to go looking for rental units, we don't have to go looking for anything now. Now that they gave us a new calculator, we've met it.
So what goes into the determination of that threshold?
I was trying to look for
Nobody
it
can
here.
read it.
Does that mean?
That's probably.
Does that mean we're eligible for more grants now?
And we did get one, and we're going to be doing more work. So let me see if I can find, oh, I know what that is.
I know how it works.
Yeah.
What number do you need?
So what goes into it is, we start with 100% AMI, and we're getting that from the census, the American Community Survey. The mortgage interest rate, we adjust that, and that's based on the Federal Reserve Bank current rate for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, average. Then we put in the down payment percentage, and that is an average that is offered by the National Association of Realtors, Home Buyers and Sellers Generational Trends. And then we put in the mortgage year term. I just selected 30 because that seems to be a pretty standard mortgage term. And by doing all of that calculation, then 100% AMI, which is what we need to hit, is at 501,607. And then affordable rent actually increased by $7. So our home price went up by almost 75,000, but the rental went down by, it was 1,667. I obviously can't do math tonight. It went 1,667 and now it went to 1,669. So it increased by $2.
Oh my, I wonder why. They didn't give us only that much.
So that's where we are now. So we've met our targets. Congratulations.
And that means we get more grants. We hope.
So there we go.
Sounds good.
And again, that calculator arrived in our hands, I believe, right after it came to the Housing Steering Committee and right before we presented it to the town trustees. We're still going to implement all the quick wins. We're just now, we don't feel the sense of urgency that we have to, try to get 50 or try to get something a year, or that we have a little bit more luxury of time to not have to be reactionary, but instead we can be proactive.
That's great news.
So that's that one. And then on the natural healing section of the town code, you all saw that. And then the town trustees heard that for the first reading on April 22nd and approved it. The second reading will be, next Tuesday evening. And so that will be, even a section of the code that we'll add, and we'll just say it's done. So we don't have to re-review that. And then, trustee Chris Kurtz resigned. And so there will be an opening on the town board of trustees. And I'm sure that they'll put something out for application. But if any of you decide to do that, you cannot leave us hanging if there's not going to be quorum that evening.
I like how you said that.
So.
And we gotta understand that Colorado law requires then the board of trustees, correct me if I'm wrong, to either, within 60 days after the formal resignation, I think they have to either do a special election, which is very expensive, or do an appointment. So that process is gonna go really fast. Once they, most likely, I'm guessing they would probably do an appointment process like they did when Chris was appointed. And I think they would have to, when his formal resignation is after their next meeting. So
I don't know what that process is. I'm really sorry. You're asking me a lot of questions tonight that are outside my area, and I just don't know the answer. He announced his resignation at the last trustee meeting.
I was there.
I don't know if they then have to accept it at this next one to have it be the official opening, or if he announced his resignation and that meant that there would be official opening, because he's not coming this next time.
Oh, he's not going to the meeting?
No.
Because I remember hearing him when we were at the meeting, and him saying something about, and the next meeting would be my last one or something.
Oh, okay, well, maybe it is this coming time.
And so, yeah, okay, so at least, it's gonna be at least 60 days from there, maybe, that they have to have that done.
Yeah, so
When was his term meant to expire?
June-ish.
Well, he has
Didn't
40,
he just answer?
I don't pay attention to these things. He was just reelected, I believe,
Last
last
fall.
April.
Last
Oh, right, yeah.
So 3
Right.
more years, yeah, it'd be three. like
no,
2.5
4 years, right? They have 4-year terms.
Yes, 4 years, so 3.5 years.
So is the appointment the remainder of that term?
No, not under
Until there's
Colorado
another
law, it's
election.
until the next
To
election.
the next election, if it's more than,
Yeah.
50%.
That's what Colorado law says, because I looked it up.
So it would just be to this November or next November?
It would probably be the next November, right?
Illinois
They're still
law goes
taking
to
out
the next
signs
regular
from the last
elect,
election.
the
Yeah.
interim is to the,
Well, it depends on who you pay.
Because I think the next city election wouldn't be this fall, it would be next spring, you're right, the next April.
in Illinois, they go to the next election when, like, so it would be the April election, you wouldn't put it on the interim, you would serve that like till the next regular municipal election term, which would have been April, but not, so a
Which
year and a
makes
half
sense if you
instead
think
of 2
about it.
years.
It makes things.
That's probably different here.
I don't know, it makes a lot of sense, and again, you're asking those great questions, and I do not have the answers this evening.
You're doing great.
Well, just to say, I'm trying to count the people that are on the board of trustees right now that come from the planning commission.
It's gonna throw something at you.
Like, we've got help in that, we got help in
At
the.
least 4. So it says,
Okay.
so, yeah, I think there are at least 4. Right now. Out of 7? Do we have 7?
The planning commission has been the farm system.
Yeah.
before.
We
Yeah.
we're the.
And it was really dicey last year.
Yeah, there was like one year where it was like everyone all
Yeah,
of
it
a
was
sudden.
everyone. It was just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, so, just think long and hard what you're gonna do for Annie and Tawny. No, and actually, having that planning experience is very, very wonderful for the town trustees. The town trustees, obviously, land use is your only focus. They focus on so many other things. So having that good foundation for land use is an important asset to have on the town board of trustees. So if any of you decide that that is something that you would like to pursue, you know, that's great. It'd be good to continue working with you. I'm just trying to get you into not. But, yeah. Friends here, friends there, just friends everywhere is good.
and a ton get people trained up and then they go forward. All right, anything else? Did you have anything else you wanted to?
Oh, do you want to make an announcement?
Oh, sure. So we have selected a new planner. So Bella Monzo. She has decided to start, or we've decided on May 27th. So assuming, all the background checks and all that good stuff, but I'm sure. So she's currently in California, but she's from Colorado. Both her and her fiance, and so they're excited to be coming back, and that's their primary draw is coming back to Colorado. And she, in school, did one of her projects with Berthoud Habitat, so she is familiar with Berthoud, so that was a really great. But we feel that she'll be a really great fit, and we're very excited. So hopefully, keep your fingers crossed, everything goes as planned. So
Very good.
That's great. Congrats.
Yeah.
You guys will get a little relief. Anything else? Any other announcements?
No.
Commissioners, any other announcements that you have? No. No? All right, well, with that then, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So Commissioner Sigmund moved to adjourn. Do we have a second?
I second.
Commissioner Simmons seconds. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Nays and abstentions, okay. We're good. So yeah, I'll send you a template.
Yeah.